All right, here we are.
So,
we are at Mocha Monkey,
we are roasting coffee.
ready to roast. We're roasting the first batch of the day. I'm the owner here at Mocha Monkey, and I am learning to roast from our roaster, John Panucci. So we're gonna take you through it. We're gonna do it right now. This is our roaster, San Franciscan.
Her name is Harriet.
Harriet.
So we've got our decaf coffee loaded in the hopper on top, 20 pounds, and our temperature probe is reading 421. That's close enough. We are going to hit the start button on computer. Open the hopper, gas all the way up, and then hit your space bar, and that starts your chain of events. So right now, we're just in charge mode.
Okay, so you hit the space bar to start the timer, basically.
Yep, our graph.
Okay.
So we will do pretty much nothing for the first 4 minutes.
We started roasting coffee like 6 months ago, probably now,
About
September,
August, yeah.
on a smaller roaster that we had at our other store. And we since have sold that roaster, and we bought this bigger roaster because we can do way more in the same amount of time with this roaster than we could with the other roaster. So that's one interesting thing about roasting is that it doesn't matter the size of roaster you're on, the batches take about the same amount of time. It's just the quantity that you're doing at one time changes.
Yeah.
Is that anything I'm saying
Basically,
wrong?
no,
Correct me.
you're going to be within the same, well, I mean, for example, the little roaster that we were using over at our downtown location, I was roasting 4 pounds maximum on that, and it would still take about 12 to 13 minutes to complete a full roast. On here, we're doing 20 pounds, and we're completing that same profile, actually a little bit quicker because it holds the ambient heat better.
Yeah.
So we're actually coming in about 30 seconds to a minute faster on our roast with Harriet than we were on Marcel. Marcel was the name of the little.
So what took us, we were roasting for all 4 of our locations. What do you think? 250 pounds a week, 300 pounds a week, something like that?
Usually.
And so that was taking John 30, 35, 40 hours a week. And now on this, you're down to like 2 days a week right now roasting.
Yep.
So, and now we have a brand new website. We're selling all our coffee online on the mochamonkey.com. And so we're hoping to build that up. We're hoping to get some new packaging, get into grocery stores, Amazon potentially. Where else do we want to sell?
Everywhere.
Anywhere. Other coffee shops. There's a local hospital that we're talking with about getting in all their locations. So it's been a fun experiment and project, which is one of the reasons why I haven't been as active on YouTube and in the pottery studio is because I've been working on some of this stuff for the coffee shop.
So right now in the roasting process, we're in what's called the charge or the drying phase. Not a lot of people realize when you get coffee, it becomes green. And so this is what coffee looks like after it's been hulled and dried. And so we get this, we load it into the roaster. There's still some moisture left inside of those beans.
Yeah.
And so the drying period, we're actually trying to get some more of that moisture out. And if we were to smell this right now, it's gonna get kind of a wet hay.
Wet hay.
And
Yeah, doesn't smell like coffee yet.
No, as that dampness cooks out, that's when we'll start to experience the myard effect. We'll start to get that browning.
What now? What now? What now?
The myard effect.
Myard?
Okay, if you watch Food Network, the myard effect is a chemical reaction that happens when food starts to turn brown. And so that browning caramelization process is where actually all the flavor comes from in the roasting and in the cooking process. So a good steak with a nice sear on the outside, that's the myard effect.
The myard effect.
You learned something new today.
So we're at 4 minutes.
And all we're doing right now is we're just watching for the beans to change color a little bit more. They're still looking a little bit kind of like they did when they went in. And we want that to take a little bit more of a yellow turn. And that's how we know we're kind of through the dry phase.
And this is our decaf right now.
Yes. Something else people might not know about coffee while we're waiting for the first transition. It's not actually a bean, it's the seed. It's the seed of a coffee cherry, which looks a lot like a fresh cranberry in size and in color. And so those are actually what are picked off of the tree when they're ripe enough and then dried. A couple different processes they use. Some do a natural. They just let the beans sit out and the hulls dry off naturally. Some will hull them first and then let them sit out and dry them. But then after that process is when we get them. We're starting to take on a brownish yellowish.
Yeah.
So that means we are past the dry end. So we're just gonna mark that on here. And these colors kind of designate different phases. So the green is our drying. This is now our flavor development, getting into first crack, which will happen right around this line. And then this is where we're deciding where we want to drink it.
Okay. Like how light versus dark.
Yep.
So this is like drinkable coffee basically at whatever.
Yeah,
time.
once we hit...
Is that 8 minutes?
Yeah, once we hit first crack, it's technically drinkable.
Okay.
It's not developed though, so it tends to taste kind of grainy.
So yes, I also have to be learning this because right now John is the only person in the world that can roast all of the coffee for Mocha Monkey, which is a dangerous game to play. So I need to know, somebody else needs to know how to do it.
We don't have insurance on me.
Yeah.
So first batch of the day, no matter how long we let it warm up, it's always going to run a little different.
Okay.
So we're probably not going to touch our gas until we get into the 8-minute
Because
mark.
normally you're taking the gas down a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And this is where it's like so crazy to me. I've said this to John like 100 times, is how similar roasting is to running a kiln, right? So we run these gas kilns at our studio, either the soda kiln or the gas cone 10 reduction kiln, and you're adjusting two things like the airflow and the gas pressure. And that's exactly the same thing with a roaster. It's just on a way like smaller, you know, not as hot basically. We're running it at 424 as the top temp-ish. Right?
Yeah, for this roast. The darkest we go temperature-wise is 440 degrees, whereas what you're topping out over 1400.
Oh no, like 2400.
2400.
Yeah.
Dang.
So the kilns, yeah, I mean, basically it's time and temperature, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, if you kept the gas pressure at 6 psi right now, you would just keep climbing.
Yep.
And then that's all a kiln is it's just designed to like insulate super well, so that if you keep your gas pressure at that much for, 12 hours,
Sure.
then you're gonna just keep climbing all the way
Wow.
up to 2400. So, but the roasting process makes a lot of sense to me because it's so similar to running a kiln. And then all those little variables make a difference. If you change the gas pressure a little bit,
Yep.
you're gonna get something different. You change the airflow a little bit, even though you say you don't really change the airflow of this one that much.
On this one, we don't have to change it as much. Occasionally, if something seems to be going awry, which can happen just because of weather conditions, barometric pressure, humidity. But on this bad boy, we haven't had to change it much at all. We were making probably 3 or 4 adjustments with the airflow on the small roaster.
Yeah, and they made a big difference. It felt
Yeah.
like,
You can hear first crack starting.
first crack. Some good audio.
So that cracking is, again, there's still some of that moisture left in the bean. And so that cracking is actually the process of that moisture reaching a point where it goes from water to steam vapor, and like a popcorn kernel, causes it to snap.
Okay.
You can get to a point farther enough in the roast where you start to hear a second crack. We get to that with our Monkey Oasis, our darkest roast. But anything past that, you're going to start to risk incendiary issues.
Incendiary, what a good word.
This is another interesting thing that happens in roasting.
Yeah.
When you hit that crack, you'll notice that your ambient temperature starts to take a spike. So kind of regardless of what's going on up here, you end up always kind of pulling the gas back just a little bit when you're hitting that crack.
Because you see, you're talking here,
Yeah,
so you started to spike up a little bit, so you're
Yep.
going to pull it back a little bit so you don't overlap that line
yeah,
too much.
and that is literally the steam coming out of the coffee causing the ambient temperature to rise as
Okay.
well.
And I thought, what I did with I learned to roast on our smaller roaster. My thought is I'll just learn from you today to turn the gas off.
I just cut the gas at about 20 degrees below our final roast temp. And so now I'm just gonna watch, listen, and wait. And then the magic pours forth.
Magic pours forth the elixir of life. So yes, I'm just gonna kind of observe today, film a little bit, and then maybe next Thursday or even 2 Thursdays from now, I would actually take the reins and
Sure.
have you oversee what I'm doing.
All right, we're getting ready.
All right, we're gonna get ready.
And
It's the
drop.
exciting part. So we're at 10 minutes, 45 seconds. Decaf means are. So you saw, what was your trigger to dump?
So my temperature hit 424. I'm into a nice rolling crack, and the color of my beans And a decaf tends to roast a little darker, but the color of the beans was right where I wanted it to be for our decaf. And so right now, this is the cooling tray, and this is sucking air down through the bottom, kind of like a reverse air hockey table, trying to cool the beans down as quickly as possible.
Just like a kiln, you have a certain point in which you like want to stop the process, and you want to stop it as quick as possible, and that's why there's a cooling tray, so that you dump them, cool it as quick as possible, and then let it cool, and then you get it into bags, ready to serve it.
Some larger roasters will actually use a quenching system, so the cooling tray is, say, twice the size. We'll actually do a slight mist of water to help the process. Again, because I mean, you've got so much, with 20 pounds, now we're, after weight loss, we're probably at about 18, 17 pounds. That's 17 pounds of 424 degree coffee.
Right, like
right
that
there,
will hold a lot of heat for a long time. So what's like the biggest, like what are like these giant commercial roasters? Like this is a 10K roaster, so that's 10 kilo. The small one we had was a 2K, so that is how many kilos per batch. Right. So what's like Caribou at Starbucks, like when they have their giant roasters going, are they 100K?
They can do, some of the larger ones I've seen can do 2 full bags. So our bags are 60 kilograms, so 122 pounds. So they can roast 440 pounds of coffee at once. So they literally have a system that brings the coffee over the top, and then they just slice the bottom, goes right into this.
So that would be like probably 300 pounds at a time?
Yeah.
Wow. Crazy.
It's intense, but it's awesome.
And a roaster like that is what, millions?
Gotta be close. I mean, you're definitely talking in the hundreds of thousands. And then depending on which system you're using, some of those are fully automated versus this is, we're doing this ourselves.
Right.
And then right now,
just like kiln,
I'm trying to keep my temperature in the drum around where I'm gonna need it for the next roast.
Sure.
But otherwise, just waiting for it to cool down.